Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am continuing toasting Gnorcs and talking mental health. However, I am posting my first installment of a religious trauma themed episode. So as I kind of mentioned in my OCD episode, religious trauma is going to be a big deal on this channel. It's going to be one of the topics that I talk about the most. So I figured for the first one, I'm going to try to give, to the best of my ability, an overview of my thoughts on this topic, my own experiences with it, and how it can affect so many different things. So we're going to kind of treat this episode as an overview, backstory, context episode. And I chose Galaxy Spyro with Purple Flame Breath to add a positive spin of spiritual positivity as we tackle a hard topic. So, to start us off, I want to say, I pretty much want to make my own disclaimer, okay? And that is, I am not saying that religion is all bad, okay? I am not here to crap talk religion as a whole. Instead, I'm here to point out the ways that it can go wrong and the ways that it can be toxic, and just talk about how, for me and the type of person that I am, religion did more harm than it did good. Religion is supposed to be, I think, really, what it should be is a safe place for people and hope for people, but it can quickly turn into control, shame, guilt, and a lot of negative things. So that's my disclaimer. My disclaimer is that. And another thing I want to say is, in my own personal experiences that I will be discussing, if people who know me in my personal life come across this and they know who I'm talking about, I just want to say I'm purposely not giving names for a reason. I feel that I have the right to talk about the way people's actions have affected me, whether they are people that are loved by others, whether I love them too but have conflicted feelings about them, whether they're, still living or not. This is simply my way of getting out some complicated emotions and feelings, and I think it's important to share. So, this is not a place for me to crap talk people. I will not be naming names. I will not be dragging anyone through the mud. However, some of the things that I'm going to say about people aren't positive, and that's because they did things that affected me and my life negatively, so you can't really ignore that just to keep peace. So, okay, now that we have that out of the way, let me dive into my religious background a little bit more, and most likely touch on some surprising things for those who didn't grow up around me. So, I have touched on a little bit of my religious background in my other Toasting Gnorcs and Talking Mental Health videos, such as the OCD video along with the homophobia video, and that is because, to no one's surprise, religious trauma affects these things, and these things tie into religious trauma. But since this is a religious trauma focused video, I think I can dive a little bit deeper into the past and my religion and what it meant to me and how it progressed. So let's get started with the story. So I was raised in the church and I went to a private Christian school. So from the very start, I would consider myself someone who was indoctrinated. And what that means essentially is that from the time I was a child, in my most influential stage, I was taught that Jesus Christ was the only way to stay out of hell. And it shouldn't be centered on that, but unfortunately the fear-based rhetoric makes it centered on that. In addition to staying out of hell, I was also taught that Jesus Christ was my savior. He came here from God, died for me, and I should be eternally grateful because I, as a human, am naturally born sinful, and Jesus sacrificed himself to cover me and to cover my mistakes, okay? So that's essentially the basis of what I was taught, and if you know anything about, modern Christianity, you know the drill already, but I still wanted to give that context for those who aren't as familiar with it. So I really clung to this idea as a kid. I remember leaving church one day when I was really young and asking my mom what it meant to be saved, because I just thought I was naturally a Christian for being there and believing it. And then she explained to me that you're not truly a Christian until you ask Jesus for forgiveness. So once I found this out, I was pretty nervous about the idea of like going to hell and not having forgiveness from Jesus, especially because I felt like I loved him so much already. I didn't feel like anything was missing there. So once I found out that there was that layer, of course, I did get saved in Bible school. I remember the Sunday school, or the people that were helping with the Bible school, asking if anybody wanted to give their heart to Jesus. I do not remember raising my hand. I just remember them coming to get me and take me into another room and pray with me, which was essentially me asking Jesus to forgive me of my sins. And I remember being confused, so I'm always torn on like, did I raise my hand or did I just look interested maybe and they thought I wanted to go back, because I know I was nervous about it. But anyway, I was about 6 years old when that happened, and everything from then till I was about 10-ish was pretty standard. I don't remember having any specific anxieties about religion. I felt pretty confident in my faith, and it just was what it was. I went to a Christian school, I went to church, I didn't know any different, I didn't think that there was even another option, and that just, it was what it was. But by the time I was around 10 years old, I started having a lot of guilt and shame, and I'm not going to get into like why or what specific struggles I was having. All I will say is that the church teaches you that a lot of things are wrong that may not be wrong, or may not be wrong in every context. And I had immense guilt and shame essentially for just being a human being who was struggling, quote, air quote, with, that was struggling with sins, per se. So at this age, I decided that I wanted an even cleaner slate, and I decided to get baptized, because my church did not believe that you had to be baptized to get to heaven. They just believed it was a nice way to show that you believe. So I thought once I got baptized, as long as I never sinned or struggled again with the things I was struggling with, then I had a clean slate, and I took it very seriously. And from then on out, I was a little bit fanatical about my Christianity. I would say even though I made that decision at age 10, it really didn't kick in hard until I was about 12. When I was 12, I came to terms with some traumas I had been through. You've heard me mention childhood SA. I always tell you guys to look it up, because if I say it, it might get flagged, and I try to save my flags for videos that are specifically about the topic that will get flagged. But I realized what that was and what it meant, and from what the church had taught me about sex and sexual immorality, where I didn't understand the difference between consensually choosing to engage in something sexually versus being a victim of a sexual crime. I felt like I was broken and dirty and had a complete mental breakdown. I thought I was tainted for life because this person had taken my purity. And this is where purity culture really comes in, and it's just, for me, it was the most insidious part of Christianity, and something that just really messed me up, especially as I began to mature and grow older and realize, the part that like sexuality is supposed to have in your life. So I had so much trauma that I actually shut my entire like sexuality down. Like, not just me being gay, but just even having sexuality. Like, I hated anything to do with the thought of sex, okay? Like, I just hated it. So that's a subtopic that we will talk about later. But I think that my age with, you know, puberty and that being something that you start to learn about, and it gets brought up and everybody around you's doing it and you're not because you're terrified and you don't want to go to hell and you just don't even think you have a sexuality. It's like a whole thing. So that's where a lot of my trauma comes from, because I didn't want to be any more impure than I already was, and I already thought I had been ruined. And this is all happening internally, you know, I'm not talking to anybody about this, I'm not trying to have a conversation with my parents about it, I'm just listening to what the church says and interpreting it with the ability that my little, you know, young brain has, and it all makes sense to me. So as time goes on, I get older, you know, by the time I'm 16 or 17, I'm still in this whole, yeah, I'm refusing to acknowledge that I have a sexual orientation or sexuality at all. I must be perfect, I must be pure, I can't mess up, you know, I didn't curse, I didn't drink. I've still never drank alcohol just because I'm not interested in it. But back then it was, you know, just be perfect. And then, as I kind of talked about in my coming out video, my homophobia video, by the time my cousin died when I was 17, I lost a lot of the strength I had to be able to hide these things and suppress these things, and that is when I sort of started to let myself question religion. So before, it was just, you don't question anything. You're not, you know, if you question, then that means you don't truly love Jesus, you don't truly love God. And because I was so passionate about a love that I felt like I felt for Jesus and for God, I didn't want to be blasphemous, and I didn't want to be, you know, ungrateful for Jesus' sacrifice by questioning what the church was teaching me. So until my cousin died and I finally just got so weak that I couldn't keep my guard up, I wouldn't question things. But then I started to at that age, because I just I wasn't strong enough anymore to put the front up and to put the wall up and to just blindly trust and believe these things. So it seemed that once I started to question exactly how the church warns you, because they don't want you to do this, everything started unraveling and falling apart. Like, you know, one little question, which at my, you know, the biggest thing I struggled with was I knew I was gay, and that was just an absolute no-no to the church. I started to think about it and think, well, as long as it's not lust-based and I love someone, I can't help that I'm drawn to women rather than men, but I'm just loving people, because at the time I didn't even feel like I had a sexual orientation. I thought I was asexual, or, well, I knew I was attracted to women emotionally, I just didn't think I wanted anything sexually, because I had shut that part of me down. So the sin part was supposed to be sex, so I was confused and I was like, well, why is this still wrong? And so once I started questioning it, looking into it, I won't get into debates with anybody, but, you know, I found a lot of information that made me realize how overplayed the whole homosexuality thing in Christianity is. And from there, a lot changed for me. That's when I decided to be what they call a progressive Christian, that, you know, is definitely not extreme right evangelical centered. They're, you know, affirming of gay people. They focus more on poverty and helping the poor, and, you know, the things that I feel like if Jesus were leading a church, he would probably be doing. And, you know, that worked for a while, and then the older I got, the more holes I just saw in all of it, and the less I felt like I needed to put a label on what I believed, and the less I felt like I needed a religion as opposed to spirituality. So I did, because of religious trauma, go through a phase where I just kind of didn't want anything, and it was a very numb and hard phase for me because I've always been incredibly spiritually connected. Like, I've always felt like there is more to this life, regardless of teachings. I'll get into some of the psychic and mediumship tendencies that I have in other videos because I think those could be interesting, but I just know on a very deep level that there is more to life than what I'm experiencing in this human body and at this specific time and place. And that's the best way I can explain it. And I've always known that deep down, but religion, especially Christianity specifically, I can't speak for everything, but Christianity in Appalachia, I know for sure, we are taught that, you know, you cannot question God, you cannot question the church, and you cannot question the Bible. And if you do, and if you believe in anything else, it's wrong. It's a sin. It is one of the gods that, you know, is fake. It's a false god. It's a false prophet. It's whatever. You are made to be terrified to change your spiritual beliefs or your religion. Because if you do, you might as well just be an atheist. That's pretty much what they tell you. And I've never felt like I related to atheism. I don't feel like, you know, I don't feel like I need to put a label on a god, but I also don't feel like there's nothing. I don't feel like it's just only, you know, yeah, we're just here and that's it. Like, I've always felt like there's more to it. I don't know what that is. And I've kind of just come to terms with being okay with, like, not knowing the purpose and the point of it. But I know there's, like, something for me. And again, like, if you are an atheist, like, totally cool. I don't mind. I think this stuff is personal, and that's kind of my whole point with this video. But, yeah, I did start to kind of progress more that way, and that leaves me to where I'm at now, which is spiritual. I feel spiritually connected, but I don't feel the need to label my belief. And it doesn't even mean that I don't believe Jesus was a thing, or that there isn't truth to Christianity, or that there isn't truth to other religions, because I kind of think that maybe a little bit of all of it is real, and a lot of all of it is fabricated by people and used for propaganda. That's kind of where I'm at now with religion and my spirituality. But yeah, that gives like a full overview of my spiritual journey. Going back a little bit further, I do want to emphasize just how serious I was about my religion, and I did say that I was very into it and I really bought into the ideas, but I mean, it was so intense and so serious, and this ties into the OCD video a lot, but like, it was I was so invested in it that like I wouldn't listen to secular music. I would only listen to music if the person was either a Christian or the music was labeled as Christian, like, and it was rock music and metal music and screaming music, but like it had to be Christian, or I was worried that like God was going to be mad at me or punish me, or that I was tainting my purity. It was all about purity, and it's not even just sexual purity, it's just purity. It's like I was terrified of being dirty or evil or going to hell. And hell is a big scare tactic that Appalachian Christianity really pushes. I always get shocked when I find out that there are churches out there and Christians out there who aren't like hell-centric focused. Like, they're more focused on, you know, the freedom in Christianity and the love and the happiness and like being grateful for, you know, what God has done for them, as opposed to constantly pushing the fear rhetoric of hell, of like, your goal is to just stay out of hell. But that is what church was for me, that's what Christianity was for me, and that's what caused me a lot of the issues that I ended up having. So I think religious trauma, in summary, is incredibly important to talk about, and that's why I want it to be on this channel. I want to talk about all the different all the different subjects, the things people have said to me, the things, you know, I've experienced that were incredibly harmful because of religion, and also the ways that you get hope from it, and that's how you end up being dependent on it, is because you form this relationship with this entity that carries you through life and gives you hope, while simultaneously always being able, at the drop of a hat, at the drop of any mistake, to take that hope away from you. And I think that's the most important part for me, and why I want to talk about this on my channel, because I know people outside of Appalachia have experienced this. I know a ton of people in Appalachia, in my area, have experienced this, and we're made to be terrified to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Even if they feel it and they see it, we are so threatened by politics and fear to not be able to speak out about the problems that can come from the thing that's supposed to give us hope. So this is just the first of many religious trauma episodes. I will dive deeper into specific topics when they hit and when I feel like it, and it will definitely be a permanent thing on this channel. Now, before I close, this is where I want to open it up to anybody who is interested in being a guest on Toasting Gnorcs Talking Mental Health, not just for religious trauma, but for anything that you would like to talk about. I will, I won't be able to say yes to everyone. I'll have to screen people, because there are certain things and certain people out there I may not be comfortable talking to, because this is the internet and you never know what you're gonna get. But if you are interested in being screened for being on Toasting Gnorcs and Talking Mental Health, specifically about religious trauma, since that's the theme today, but about any mental health issue, I would love to have you. I have had guests in the past. I've had Kyle S., and I've also had my friend Ryan. Ryan talked about autism, and Kyle S. talked about depression. But any mental health issue that you may have, even if I don't have it or experience it, I would love to have you on, because I think it's important for us to get this stuff out there and talk about it. So if you're interested in being on Toasting Gnorcs and Talking Mental Health, join my Discord server and request to DM me. Let me know what you'd like to talk about, and we'll see if we can get it on the schedule. So thank you all so much for watching. If you liked this content and you like the stuff I do, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much for watching.